Welcome to this Poetry Expo 2024. We are hosted by Versopolis, and we would like to thank everybody who is involved in this fantastic opportunity to share poetry around Europe and the world. And so let's get started. My name is Serenella Iovino. I'm talking to you from North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where I teach here at the university. And but our protagonists today are four fantastic poets from all over, actually all over the world, but we are focusing specifically on Italy today, even though the poets are from other places, but they share their roots also in Italy. And first of all, I would like to acknowledge Tiziano Frato, who is the real mind behind this event.
Mind.
Sort of arboreal mind who has organized and made this conversation possible today. And in fact, our title, Motherhood, Motherhood, is one of his children, of his poetical children again. So motherhood, nature blows into us. Our roots could save our mental fragility through poetry and art. That's such an engaging title. And we are going to explore this universe of psyche and nature with fantastic poets, as I was telling you, Samantha Barendson from France, Argentina, and Italy. Then we have Marisa Martinez Pérsico from Buenos Aires, actually, but I think that she's in Italy now, and Tiziana Cera Rosco, who is from the Abruzzo National Park and many other places, but I will, of course, let her talk about herself and her roots. And Tiziano Frato is now in the mountains, in the woods, as usual. So just a couple of words of introduction. Here we have poets that are also performers, that are also thinkers, in some cases photographers, artists, and they have all published many books of poetry, in other cases, even novels, essay, books. And so we have this sort of multi-talented pool today. So let's start with Marisa Pérsico. Marisa Martinez Pérsico, who is also a professor, I see, so somehow a colleague. And she's from Buenos Aires, and she lives in Italy now. She's author of several books, among which I would like to mention Las Voces de las Hojas, so the voice of the leaves, Poética Ambulante, Los Pliegos Obtusos, and she's also the winner of the Rio de la Plata National Award, so a very important prize in Argentina. I cannot mention all the works, especially because there are really many works. You are all experienced poets and others. But Marisa also, I mean, she's specialized in Hispanic literatures and philology, so she's also, as I was saying, a researcher. Then we have Marisa Barendson. Marisa is friend. Sorry, Samantha. I apologize. Marisa Barendson was another one. Okay. Sorry. So Samantha Barendson, she's French, Italian, and Argentinian, but I mean, I would like to let her say which is the nationality to which she feels more comfortable with. But I think that she feels comfortable being a cosmopolitan person.
Completely.
In fact, she's a very active poet and performer. She's a member of various collectives, and I really like the titles of these collectives: La Syndicat des Poètes qui vont mourir un jour. So the Union of Poets who will die someday, because poetry.
Someday.
Huh?
Not now, someday.
No, someday. I mean, it's true that we aim at immortality, but not everybody does, right? So, and also I love Le Cercle de la Maison Close, the Warehouse Society, which is, I mean, I would love to hear more, but perhaps we have the time to discuss this. So she's the winner of the René Lénaud Poetry Prize, Emergence et Résistance, so Emergence and Resistance, and she's author of, again, how many books? 9 poetry books and 2 novels. So welcome, Samantha. And then Tiziana Cera Rosco. Tiziana Cera Rosco is undescribable for me because she's such a multifaceted performer. She's author of books of poetry, which she actually withdrew from the market after her latest, I think, book of poems, Corpo Finale. But she's also, again, an artist, a photographer. She's a thinker. She's also a sort of a mythical figure, mystical voice, sorry, because she interacts religiously with natural forms. And for example, visiting her website, I really fell in love with the experience she had in Palermo, where she was an artist in residence at the Orto Botanico. And so she really interacts in her poetry and in her photographs with natural beings in many forms and with her own body, I mean, which is beautiful, by the way. So artistically and aesthetically and psychologically, psychically, anyway, whatever. I'm very lucky to be in the company of all of you. But then we have Tiziano Fratus. And let me say that Tiziano, I mean, I cannot be impartial about Tiziano because we have been friends for many, many years. And so
Not so many.
Well, I know in Spark
Not so
more,
many. Some
and
years.
some years, well,
Some years,
actually
okay.
more than a decade for sure. But I think
Okay.
that we know our roots and our trunk, our bark, our leaves, and so I can say that Tiziano is a very prolific writer and poet. He intervenes in public debates about the environment and environmental protection in Italy, especially is the voice of the forests. And he has written books of poetry, essays, and is also one of the voices of Italian Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, and is someone from whom one can learn a lot. And then, so let's get started now with the title of this symposium, Motheroot, Motherhood, how our poetical experience connects with nature and with our soul. Can you please explain to me this title? Who's going to start? Okay, you start.
No, not me. No, I would say not me.
You make the error.
Yeah, the one who smiles the first will start. Okay, you do it.
That's very interesting to start because I'm really the one person in this group who is not interested into nature and who doesn't write about nature. And I have a really a connection with concrete and with buildings and with glass and metal. And so nature is it's something very strange for me. And so I was very interested to be here because I would like I like to try to understand what is this connection for me with the nature, and I found it. And that it's true that a few years ago I wrote a book named My Lemon Tree about the death of my father. And it turns out that my father was cremated after he died, and the ashes of my father went into a garden and he became a lemon tree. So I'm the daughter of a lemon tree, so I'm a sort of lemon. And so my connection and the roots with nature, it's more something linked to the genealogy and to the idea of what are we doing when we are dead, which are we becoming like grass, I don't know. So it's something very spiritual for me, the link, and I wanted to translate that into a poetic form, so I wrote one and then another book about this theme. But it's really complicated for me to speak about nature because I'm surrounded by buildings. I grew up in Mexico and then in Paris and then in Lyon, and I like to spend time in New York. So the nature is something very, so what is nature? So
Well,
where is nature? So I want to hear about what you have to say about that.
Oh, that's very fascinating. And this reminds me of something young Wolfgang Goethe said. He said, even the most unnatural thing is nature. So concrete also comes from nature. Glass comes from nature. Even the smog of your car comes from nature. Everything is in a constant process of transformation. So there is nothing in nature, even in plastic. So according to me, that it
I
depends
agree.
on the uses of nature we make of nature anyway. But anyway, I will, who's the one who's smiling first after Samantha? Okay, I see Marisa.
Marisa.
She's smiling. She's irradiating a big smile.
Marisa?
No. Continue. You can
please.
Have the idea, the original idea.
Okay, in my opinion, first of all, thanks to you, every one of you. Thanks to Versopolis for guest this round table, and also thanks to the persons that are listening and watching what we have to say today. For Samantha, the example, the what Samantha have said is interesting because in my personal experience, all start 25, 30 years ago, crossing some forest in California. And there, in that moment, there was a special moment in which I have lost the roots, the parental roots with my father and my mother. So I think that for a lot of persons and poets and writers who dedicate part of their work to syndicate, to investigate what is nature, what is his or her personal nature, and how these connections with the nature and all living around us, so the buildings, so the metropolis, so our dogs, our cats, our friends, all the things that we know, and also the words of the other poets or the other artists, because I suppose that for every artist or for every writer, the words and the example of other artists are fundamental, more than other kind of experiences, or not less, at least. So for every one of us, we have a bibliography of artists and poets, playwrights, and painters, I don't know, or movie directors, etc., that for us are more intimate, are more confidential, and than a lot of other persons that we know and we estimate. So all these things are part of a landscape, a mental landscape, in which every part is really important. And what is nature? I ask this to myself every day. And I'm not sure about the answer, because I'm not sure to discover again the right answer, the right definition of what is the nature. Because the nature is the wild animal living in the mountains, no, in Abruzzo, or in France, or in Amazonia. is the very old, huge hawk that stay again, which was after 1,000 years of living, etc. What is? Is the nature kind with us or not? We know that we are not so kind with the nature. No, we have continuously some dramatical experience of this. In Italy, there is a scandal in these days because 500 larches are being cutting down to build a new bob, non so come si dice pista.
Path.
Yeah,
Okay, a stadium for bob, because we have to celebrate the
Winter Olympics.
The Winter Olympics in Cortina next year, 2026. Okay. So, and there is a famous Italian violoncellist, I suppose,
player.
okay, Mario Brunello, that go there, sit down, and play his instrument only to dedicate these to these fallen trees. Is a symbol, obviously. He cannot do nothing against to avoid this this project, but this is a symbol. A man with his example do a thing so simple but so important. Play for the trees that are ending their experience on this world. So these are all part of what we call nature. Sometimes we are connected with nature because we need to be connected with something that is obviously more than our lives. So no, it's not a case that we find a connection so deep when we lose someone, a father, a friend, a wife, I don't know, a sister.
Thank you, Tiziano.
Thanks to you.
I mean, this also shows us that there are so many ways to say nature. Nature can be something unnatural, nature can be something alive, nature can be something which is inside the human or outside. So it can be so many things. Therefore, as Raymond Williams, the famous British critic, once said, nature is the most difficult concept to define. It's practically impossible. So, but I would like to hear Marisa's voice now.
I can add that a big part of my well-being, mental well-being, is the experience of listening to nature. I studied music when I was young, when I was a child. So I like to listen to its sounds, the rhythms, also the silence. And sometimes this is through the direct experience. I mean, going to places, different places, or through the memory or about my primordial places. For example, La Pampa in Argentina, I mean the plain, no? La pianura, la llanura in Argentina. So to remember and to go to places. And I think that these sounds of the nature enter in my poetry. I mean, this musicality, I need to translate it in my verses. So I want to add this way of the nature experience, the sound and the silence.
So to give voice to voices which are not yours, or which become yours in the act of writing poetry. Thank you.
Present sounds and historical sounds. So the memory is also important for me. Now that I don't live in Argentina, the memory is very important, and the nature is a part of the memory and the part of the present, because Italy is really beautiful. So I think that I have lots of places to go and to write, to inspire. me, but also the memory.
Yeah, matière et mémoire, Henri Bergson would say, but in this case also matter is memory, not simply, it's not simply a connection, it's a coincidence. Tiziana,
Yeah.
talk about, we would like to hear your voice now.
So I don't know what can I say more about the definition of nature. What I know is that I am just a consequence. I am a consequence of my culture. My culture comes from the middle of Italy. And in the middle of Italy, there is a place that is a natural park. And I come from a little place where there are really few people. And the culture of these people is also my nature. The way how we had animals, the way how we killed the animals that we used to be with. And also the forces around, because nature is not just something of good or not, something that gives to you a sensation to be natural. And there is a big ambiguity when you start to feel nature, when you start to feel forces around. There is a big ambiguity about also the language that you use to describe nature. This is for me, this is the reason because I started to perform. Because to perform, and my performance comes from my forest, the performance is a poetry language for me, because there is a bone inside of this language that is a bone of my existence. So the quality of forces that you can find in a place where are wolves, where there are trees, roots. In my place, for example, the roots of the tree, because we have an artificial lake, when the water goes down, the roots that come from the trees are like animals. So when you walk in the middle of the forest, it's like if you walk in the middle of a place where you are surrounded of animals, animal force. So, and also is a kind of quality of waiting. I don't know how I can describe this, but when I feel nature, so when I tell nature, when I tell forces of nature, the first center inside of me that recalls something that has a language is to wait, because to wait is an hard work. In the nature, you have a prey and predator. In the place where I come from, the people used to hunt. And also the poetry is a kind of spiritual hunt. Because, you know, sometimes you know the word through his imaging. When you can hunt an imaging, when you want to write, you know that you are hunting something, something is around of you that is moving, like animals. So when you are able to find an animal that is the imaging of the language that you want to use, you know that you start a big love relationship with what you are doing. So for me, nature is this kind of love relationship with the world, with the work, and also with your own evolution, because nature is connected with a kind of temporal gestation. Is simple to understand me, or is too difficult?
Yeah, it's a sort of pregnancy. Being
I'm so sorry. I try to say something that has some meaning for me. So, and the evolution is a temporal gestation. When the title of our meeting talk about it, white motherhood, mother roots, and how it's connected with art and fragility and vulnerability. The vulnerability of the spirit that we try to explain is to expose ourselves to this kind of spiritual hunt. This is for me. I don't know if I'm good enough to talk about it. So, but this is the language for me, the language in the nature, and the imaging inside of the language and how the language move relationship with the forces that you have around.
Thank you very much. So I think that everybody has her or his own experience of this word we call nature. And actually, my original question could have never been to please define nature, because it's impossible. But actually, how you relate to how your psychological experience, spiritual experience relates to nature, and it came out wonderfully from each and every one of you. That your relationship to what we call nature is a spiritual relationship, is something which exceeds formulaic stereotypes or anything, but this is something very original and deeply rooted into your own experience, which is a human experience and couldn't be differently. But I would like to proceed to give our audience also a taste of your own poetry. So I'd like to invite now, well, Marisa, would you like to start with your poetry, with your poems?
Yes, I read one poem or two poems. What do you prefer?
I think we will start with one each, and then just
I think it's better.
resume the round. How many poems you have selected? Please remind me.
Three poems, because I have obviously to read in Spanish and in English. They are not long, but
we can make two anyway. Let's make two. All right, if they are short, we can make two, and then we can give everybody their round, their turn.
So, el cielo entre paréntesis. Que las cosas se acomoden en su molde no significa que se hayan vuelto nuestras. Tal vez quiera decir que el árbol de la ausencia ha echado tallos y raíces en la tierra indicada. Como a un comensal inesperado, hay que aprender a dar el sitio exacto también al vacío. The sky between parentheses. That things settle in their mold doesn't mean that they have become ours. Maybe that is to say that the tree of absence has taken root and grown in the right place. As with an unexpected dinner guest, you have to learn to give appropriate space over to the emptiness. I was searching for the second poem because I'm using the telephone and I had it on my telephone, but if you, I wanted to make a tribute to my second language, because my second language is Italian. So I write in Spanish, but when I write in Spanish, I also think in Italian. So sometimes I look for words thinking about Italian. I mean, my expression.
We couldn't agree more. We couldn't agree more with your willingness to tribute to Italy.
It's very, my bilingualism is not an early bilingualism, but I think that Italian is really important in the process, in the creative process. This is a poem that I wrote in Spanish, but I translated. It was a self-translation into Italian. Unfortunately, I don't have the translation into English, but it's a love story between a tree and a bird. So I wanted to read it. This is the argument, but I want to read it in Italian, if it's not a problem. Albero a un merlo in primavera. Appesi la tua immagine sul mio petto, come chi cinge un anello di metallo al germoglio di una pianta per guidarla dove nasce la luce. Da lì germogliò un fiore incandescente protetto dalla nebbia esterna. Non ti sfiorarono né il lenzuolo né il grillo, né la pioggia d'autunno, neanche il riccio che giocava sulla mia pelle. Hai eretto un giardino nel silenzio, dove nascono le radici più profonde, quelle pazienti e antiche che non hanno fine. Quando diventai una foresta, recisi quel fiore e l'appesi al mio ramo, perché tu venissi a cercarmi. not, I don't have the translation, excuse me, but I want to give this tribute to my second language.
That was fantastic. Thank you very much. So is this, I mean, just to in a very prosaic way to recap. So this is the story, as you were saying, of this tree that produced this flower, this incandescent flower, and surrounded this flower with a ring that was at the same time a hug.
The sense of his spring is to look for the love. I mean,
of course, yes, and the sort of a engagement ring with the blackbird. And when the tree became a forest, he cut this flower and put it on a branch in order for the blackbird to find it. So that's beautiful. Thank you very much. So, Samantha.
Yes. So if we can read for 2 rounds, I will start with a text that I wrote when I had my first connection with nature in a vegetal way. And the English title, it's Poppy. So I made the translation like 10 minutes ago. So we will see, but first in French. Coquelicot. Dans ma tête, il y a toujours du bruit, du mouvement, des idées. Ce n'est jamais calme. Aussi, il m'arrive de ne pas entendre ce que me disent les gens, les conversations, les questions, les réunions. Je suis dans ma tête, pleine de bruit, de mouvements, d'idées, dans ma tête, en conversation avec moi-même, jamais seule, jamais vraiment là. Et les poèmes bousculent les listes de choses à faire, bousculent les dates anniversaires, bousculent les... Tu n'oublieras pas de bousculer les rendez-vous, bousculent les bonnes idées pour un nouveau poème, bousculent les courses à faire, bousculent les devoirs des enfants, bousculent les divisions, les soustractions, bousculent les... Merde, j'ai perdu mon poème. Bousculent les... Tu ne sais pas la dernière? Bousculent les... En réalité, je m'en fous. Bousculent les... Où est mon poème? Jusqu'au jour où, assise au bord de l'herbe, un coquelicot, silence, fragile, calme, apaisant, silence, le silence, enfin, et son poème. And now the first reading in English. Poppy. In my head, there's always noise, movement, ideas. It's never quiet. Also, sometimes I can't hear what people are saying to me, conversations, questions, meetings. In my head, full of noise, movement, ideas. In my head, in conversation with myself, never alone, never really there. Poems, push to-do list, push birthday, push you won't forget to, push appointments, push good ideas for a new poem, push errands, push children's homework, push division, subtraction, push shit, I lost my poem, push, don't you know what the last one? Push, actually I don't care, push, where is my poem? Until one day, sitting at the edge of the grass, a poppy. Silence. Fragile, calm, soothing. Silence. Silence, at least, and his poem.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a song, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you very much. I was actually imagining it with a sort of music, and I was trying to guess whether it was a rap, whether it was a new wave song. certainly more suitable for British singers than French perhaps, or Italians. It's just like Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode, no? And I would
Perfect. I
love to
like
hear
that.
Depeche Mode actually sing this poem of yours. So
Yeah.
thank you. That's
I'm
great.
the writer of Depeche Mode. You know,
Of course.
you don't know that, but it was me.
Blackbird, the Blackbird of the Beatles also.
That's
Thank
it.
you. Thank you. And I'm saving Tiziana for the last because she has long poems, and therefore I now would like to hear Tiziano, and then we slowly move to Tiziana, right?
No problem. I read the poem. Stop. Allora, the first poem, I will read the one poem, and after the English translation. This is a classic for what concerns at least my poetry. Bosco itinerante. C'è un bosco che mi abita dentro, un silenzio cantato e interminabile, ruscelli che sgorgano e animali che corrono. Io non so chi sono, ripete la voce, io non so chi sono. Ma sento che c'è questo mondo di fine trama che abita un luogo senza confini, qui nel petto, nel cuore, nella mente. Popola le ore del sonno e nutre le ore di pensiero. Ecco perché quando faccio ritorno nel bosco reale mi viene voglia di urlare e di amare come ama una madre che non distingue un figlio da un altro figlio. Sono un bosco che cammina, un bosco che radica e si sradica. Wandering forest. There is a forest living inside me, a song and endless silence, streams flowing and animals that run. I don't know who I am, the voice is repeating. I don't know who I am. Yet I feel there is this world of fine weaving, living in a place without any border, here, in my chest, in my heart, in my mind. It settles in my hours of sleep and fits my hours of thought. This is why, when I go back to the real forest, I feel like I want to scream, to love as a mother who doesn't discern a son from another son. I am a forest who walks, a forest who roots in and roots out. Grazie.
Thank you very much, Tiziano.
Puoi
This is
spegnere lo schermo, Tiziano, così
Sì,
più bello. Thank
va
you.
bene.
Thank you,
L'ho
Tiziano.
dimenticato.
That's really a classic poem of yours, and it's really a sort of manifesto. When did you write this poem? When was that?
I don't remember because I think to work only around 10, 12 poems in all my life. All the other poems I wrote are part of the work. Sometimes probably are useful to arrive to that poem. So this poem is composed by different parts that I have shaped along the years. So sometimes there is a root that is probably written 20 years ago, but another part is changed 2 years ago. So this is as a puzzle of different emotion, different part of me, different Tiziano that lives in different part of of the time.
Like paintings in a cave, like Lascaux, which are as ancient as 30,000 years ago, and then, but I mean, artists or people just kept on painting for a millennia, as a matter of fact, interacting. All right, no, don't say more, because we are going to switch to Tiziana, and then we resume the conversation, just like in a whirlwind. Tiziana.
So this is my reader. I will read Italian. So it's my husband. He's I'm relaxed. So I want to read a poem that I wrote when I met a deer in the night. And from this night, many things changed in my life. I don't know how can I say, but the languages were just one. So philosophy, art, poetry, music. From this moment, everything's changed. Tutto quello che riferisco. Con tutta probabilità, in una leggera curva ascensionale, è possibile manipolare questi stadi. La via del ritorno storcerà dalla parte del chiaro il simultaneo vivente nelle cose che vivo. Anche tra le rocce, questa notte, l'occhio del cerbiatto appare irreversibile, un male capace di scaraventare a grande distanza un uomo, mentre fuori visione il tempo accelera in maniera scomposta e il suo corpo rimane a mezz'aria, raffreddato oscurito, pronto a rompersi per un'emanazione di fiato, come fosse possibile sostituire l'intero animale con nulla. Con tutta probabilità, la via del ritorno presenterà diverse oscillazioni di verifica. Anche le parole si scompongono e sovvertono le frasi, il senso che sfugge sulla trama di un testo mobile, come fosse stata necessaria una trascrizione ingannevole, e davvero non so più se il cerbiatto ha bevuto con me al fiume, tanto da ferirmi lingua e respiro impercettibile delle informazioni totali. Ricordo che anni fa, qualche tempo dopo la sua scomparsa, fui in grado di ripetere l'osservazione che mi espulse in una grande lontananza dal mondo sporgente, come uno sparo in una derrata senza catasto, una prova sperimentale di competizione col demone. Tutto quello che riferisco è sostanzialmente Dio, senza alcuna distinzione di capo o di braccio, un folto di animali, di voci che a volte paiono la mia, e una vegetazione al di qua dall'ombra della nozione di mondo che assottiglia le sembianze di un internamento. E questo simultaneo vivente, con una leggera curva ascensionale, per uno sterminato numero di guarigioni mentali e corporali, tra quel che vedo e quel che anche vedo, insieme ai diavoli, spesso introduce il vento.
Everything I tell. With every chance in a slight upward curve, it is possible to handle these stages. The way back will skew towards the light side, the simultaneous living in experience. Even among the rocks tonight, the fawn's eyes appear reversible, an evil capable of throwing a man a great distance, while out of vision, time accelerates, broken down, and his body lies in midair, cooled or darkened, ready to break from an emanation of breath, as if it were possible to replace the whole beast with nothing. With every chance, the way back will present various oscillations of verification. Even words break down and subvert sentences. Meaning escapes the plot of a movable text as if a misleading transcription had been necessary. And I really no longer know if the fawn drank with me at the river enough to hurt my tongue and imperceptible breath of total information. I remember that years ago, sometime after his passing, I was able to repeat the observation, which expelled me into a great distance from the protruding world, like a shot in goods without registry, an experimental test of competition with the demon. Everything I tell is essentially God, without any distinction of head or arm, a thick crowd of beasts, of voices that sometimes seem like mine, and a vegetation over the shadow side of the notion of the world, thinning the internment appearance. And this simultaneous living with a slight upward curve for an endless number of mind and body healings between what I see and besides what I see, together with demons, often does introduce the wind.
Thank you very, very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you for this also, I can say, collective reading. And without further ado, I will resume the tour, because it's so beautiful to hear poems, to listen to their voices while they read their own stuff. So Marisa, ready again. Thank you so very much. That is really fantastic.
Peces de ojos tristes. Nunca compres pescado de ojos tristes, me decía mi madre al volver del mercado. La mirada sin brillo te advierte que son viejos, que se han muerto hace mucho. Desde entonces, en las pescaderías y los bares, cuando miro otros ojos, me detengo en las córneas hundidas y en los iris gastados. Que no te engañen vendiéndote ojos tristes, repetía mi madre. Confieso que en más de una ocasión, y aunque sabía, yo elegí comprarlos. Fish with sad eyes. Never buy fish with sad eyes. My mother used to tell me upon returning from the market. Their gaze without sparkle warns you that they are old, that they died a long time ago. Since then, in fish markets and bars, when I look at other eyes, I linger on their sunken corneas and worn-out irises. Don't let them cheat you by selling you sad eyes, my mother would repeat. I must confess that on more than one occasion, even though I knew better, I chose to buy them.
Thank you very much. This reminds me very much of a poem that Elizabeth Bishop wrote, The Fish, which she, yes,
about fishes, but
concentrate about on the eye of the fish.
The eye of the fish?
Yeah.
I didn't read it.
Elizabeth Bishop, American poet.
Bishop, I know her, but this is my grandmother was from Galicia in the north of Spain.
Oh yes,
and she worked with fish.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
this is a thing that really my mother told me about fishes. So I make like an analogical figuration between fishes, obviously, and people, no? But this
well, it was not so obvious for me. It was a fish, because I mean, fish have their own poetical dignity.
Really, thank you.
Thank you.
For the
Okay.
good quotation.
Samantha.
Yes. So I will read some something from the lemon tree, and I want to show you because it has been translated into English in New York, and the cover is so beautiful. I'm so proud.
You must be.
So yeah, I'm very, very happy. Il paraît que ça tient dans un vase. Eux, ils appellent ça une urne. Moi, je préfère dire vase, c'est plus floral. Il paraît que c'est ridicule qu'on se retrouve avec cette cendre grise entre les mains, contient l'homme entier sans comprendre comment on est arrivé là et qu'on ne sait pas quoi faire. Il paraît que c'est une drôle de sensation d'imaginer tout un corps d'homme, sa tête, son torse, ses bras, ses jambes, et toute sa vie, tout un squelette et sa chair, tout un être d'un coup devenu poussière. Alors on le dépose dans la terre du jardin, on se dit que c'est comme de l'engrais et qu'avec un peu de chance, il deviendra une fleur, une herbe ou même un arbre. On commence à l'arroser et c'est bien mieux que de pleurer. Et chaque jour, on y pense, on lui donne un peu d'eau, on lui parle dans sa tête ou parfois à voix haute. Et ça devient un rituel. Et c'est bien moins triste que d'aller au cimetière parler avec les pierres. Apparently, it can go all into a vase. They call it an urn, but I prefer to say vase. It's more floral. It seems ridiculous to find yourself with this gray ash between your fingers, holding the entire man without understanding how you got there and not knowing what to do. It seems strange to imagine an entire body, the body of a man, his head, his torso, his arms, his legs, and all his life, all the skeleton and its flesh, all of his being suddenly dust. He's placed in the garden soil, and you say it's like fertilizer, and with a little luck, it will become a flower, an herb, or maybe a tree. You start to water it, which is better than crying, and every day you think of it. You give him a little water, you talk to him in your head or sometimes in a soft voice. It becomes a ritual and a little less sad than going to the cemetery to talk with the stones. So this is the first part, and if we have time later, you will have the second part. But I don't think so.
If the second part is short enough, I don't know, Tiziano, we have time, so 5 minutes.
It's not strictly 1 hour.
Anyway, let's see
Yes.
let's see what happens. But thank you very much. I don't have any commentary because these are very powerful verses, and thank you very, very much for giving voice to these meditations. I mean, these are not strictly feelings; these are much more intense. Tiziana.
Thank you.
Allora, I read a poem that I wrote about a pork that we used to kill because we used it to kill animals that we grew up with. So, and because I have a mark on my body, my grandparents let me be in a room where the pork was upside down in order to take the blood of the pork and make another kind of food with this blood. So this is nature. When we talk about nature, the ambiguity of forces is also this, is ambiguity of forces of culture in the nature. And the name is, the title is Telesio. Telesio is the first philosopher that supposed that animals have a soul. Telesio. Rientrata a casa, la gonna ha preso a sbattere gli orli con violenza, tanto che ho dovuto ripetutamente calpestarla. E nel lobo parietale sinistro 3 colpi di fucile mi rimandarono ad una forma di trinità in attesa, potrei quasi dire un maiale. Ora posso assicurare di aver sentito il maiale gridare dal centro della nuca, elettricamente, o dalla carne che cuocevo sulla piastra, dall'olio friggeva proprio un grido, del quale non è possibile rendersi padrone. Anche quando la bestia era nel piatto dei miei figli e parlavamo, i gesti parevano suoni criminali, eliminatori. E benché io sia immensamente più sicura a proposito delle necessità, tutto mi è parso grave più di qualsiasi altra cosa. E il clima, i costumi, la produzione agricola o della popolazione, crisi economiche, politiche crisi, psicologie di movimenti subissati di comprensioni, tutto mi pareva proprio criminale. E cercavo dal vuoto di pensare a Feuerbach, alla mitezza della pena, che sono sempre proteine, lo sono, tenere in conto anche parte delle mie montagne, dell'arte primordiale, ma un'esposizione quarta nel cervello ha preso a far tremare le radici dei muscoli facciali, l'apparato dell'urina, ritenere fattori organici, ereditari, ritenere e intanto impugnare bene la parte del coltello e mangiare tutto, non avanzare, mangiare. Tra i 4 e i 5 anni, nella camera scura dello scolo, contai fino a 700 lo sgocciolamento dal centro del porco ammazzato il giorno prima. Mi avrebbe ucciso? E chi lo avrebbe pianto? Mi chiedevo. Quale forza avrebbe avuto il vendicatore se mettevano di guardia una bambina? Quella notte mi addormentai seduta e persino con il freddo, con le caviglie rigate dall'urina in parte trattenuta dalla gonna, e al risveglio davvero lui non c'era più, e neanche con l'assenza lo credetti veramente morto.
Telesio returned home. The skirt started flapping violently at its hems, so much so that I had to repeatedly step on it. And 3 rifle shots in the left parietal lobe, they sent me back to an unexpected form of Trinity. I could almost say a pig. Now I can assure you that I heard the pig shouting from the center of my neck electrically, or from the meat I cooked on the plate. A scream actually came from the frying oil, of which it is not possible to become master. Even when the beast was on my children's plate and we were talking, gestures seemed like criminal, eliminating sounds, and although I am immensely more certain about necessities, everything seemed more serious to me than anything else, and the climate, the customs, the agricultural or the population, production, economic crises, political crises, psychologies of motives overwhelmed by understandings, everything seemed really criminal to me. And I tried from the void to think of Feuerbach, to the mildness of the punishment, which are always proteins. They also take into account part of my mountains, of primordial art, but a fourth explosion in my brain, it started to make the roots of the facial muscles tremble, the urinary system, keeping organic hereditary factors, keeping and meanwhile holding the side of the knife well and eat everything, no leftovers, eat. Between 4 and 5 years old, in the dark room of the drain, I counted to 700. Would the dripping from the center of the pig killed the day before? Would it have killed me? And who would mourn him? I was wondering what strength would the avenger have if they put a little girl on guard. That night I fell asleep sitting up, and even with the cold, with my ankles streaked with urine, partly retained by my skirt, and upon waking, he really wasn't there anymore. Not even with his absence did I believe he was truly dead. Grazie.
That's a really another meditation, another very ancient myth also, and a mystical one again. Tiziano, you have the honor of reading the
honor.
poems.
Okay.
And then after, I mean, if we have 5 more minutes, I would like to, that cross questions with one another. For example, if Marisa want to ask something to Tiziano, Tiziana something to Samantha, Samantha to Tiziano, or anything. So.
Allora, questa poesia, this poems is called Canto breve del nome, Short Song of the Name. Poso il mondo sulla neve appena cresciuta. La notte partorisce lingue sconosciute e antiche, mai dimenticate però, come se gli occhi ricordassero, come se le mani sapessero cosa fare senza pensare. Scrivo un nome e non è il mio, non appartiene a nessuno, un nessuno che mi respira dentro, che solleva un'ala e allunga una coda, un nessuno che avanza a piedi scalzi, sorride ai cinguettii e agli alberi disordinati, ai muschi bellicosi. Sai, vivere senza domandarsi niente è una disciplina austera. Non tutti hanno la forza di radicare soltanto qui ed ora. Short Song of the Name. I lay the world on the snow just risen. The night give birth to unknown and ancient languages. Never forget, though, as if the eyes remembered, and if their hands know what to do without thinking. I write a name, and it is not mine. It belongs to no one, and nobody breathing inside me, that rises a wing and stretches a tail, and nobody who advances barefoot, smiles at chirps and at messy trees, to warlike masses. You know, living without wondering anything is in an austere discipline. Not everybody has the strength to root only here and now. Grazie.
Tiziano, I was sharing your screen.
Okay.
Because I
Okay.
want to also emphasize that Tiziano's poems have a shape. This is the shape of an acorn, if I am correct.
Yes, I
Oh,
try to make separations between the silence, the empty space, and
Okay.
and the woods of the words.
Talk with each other. So, okay, let's start with Tiziana. Ask someone a question, and this someone will respond you briefly and ask someone else a question.
So Samantha, I have
Yeah.
a attraction about, I come from primitive place, but also I have a huge attraction about building. So building means many things. Means also the possibility to, with the culture, to build different floors of knowledge and with another kind of material that you can transform. And so I'm really interested because you told that you are the one that maybe is less involved with a kind of language that comes from nature. But when I hear you, I can hear a person, a language that is more involved than you think. So let me go inside of your system. Let me understand more.
I think maybe I'm a little bit snob trying to be an urban writer, but nature is there and we are nature, so the connection exists. So we cannot have this this separation. And I have to confess that I love to travel, and I have to confess that the last road trip I made was in the USA, and the nature was absolutely astonishing. It was like, wow. The trees were so huge, and the mountains were so orange and brown, and you know, it was the immensity of the nature, and I was completely, I don't know, it was a quite an experience. And I thought I was incapable to write about that because I thought nature was boring, and say, okay, am I able to write about a tree, about a mountain, about a flower? I don't care. What I care about is people and connections and relations and sex and I don't know, etc. So I think this is a posture from me, because I want to be the urban writer, but the reality is that nature is completely amazing, and I really missed it when we were on the confinement, on the, you remember 2020? What's the name of the lockout?
Yeah,
Not the
lockdown or
lockdown, the lockdown.
yeah,
Yeah,
stay at
so
home order.
yeah, and
Correct.
I started to see birds on the sky, and it was like, wow, there are birds on the city. That's amazing. So
Let me
nature is
remind,
there, and we have to try to see it and to preserve it.
yeah. In 2020, Versopoli organized this Festival of Hope, which was very useful for many of
Yeah.
us. So, okay, your question is to now?
Oh wow! But my question was to Tiziana also, but I don't want to to be close, just her and me. So then, but I will ask anymore, because I was
That
very,
wouldn't, yeah, we should try to move.
yeah. I'm sorry.
Actually,
Yeah, but
if you can ask a question to someone else, we can just go around
yeah,
because we don't have
I
much time. I think we have.
okay, so it will be to Tiziano to try to. He's writing
Sorry,
from, yeah,
but
it's
otherwise,
writing about trees from a long time now, and it's really the subject of predilection in his work. So I want to know if you are able to write about, for example, the city and the buildings and the
Yes, I do.
concrete. And do you have texts about anything else but trees?
Yes, I have. And
Yes. Okay.
yes, because my writing is characterized by the presence of the trees and forests, but I don't consider myself an eco poet. You know that today we are dying, we are sinking in a curious poetry landscape in which the nature is become to be a sort of religion. Obviously, because the capitalism in a part and the socialism in the other are dead. And so what remains the nature. This is obviously a consequence. But I don't consider myself an eco-poet. I don't support specifically the eco-poetry. I consider myself only a poet. So I wrote a lot, for example, about father and mother. And after I discovered that my father and my mother are a kind of trees, a kind of forest. So in this way, in this consideration, I began to write about trees in an evident way, but in different poems, different collection. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I dedicated it to my father, to my mother, to my lovers, to sex also. Why not? But today there is no time to present yourself as a poet so complex, so rich of different. You have to select probably. This is my opinion. To select as a field, a direction, or this is one answer. Another answer is probably that in the last 10, 12 years, I desire to write about my identity and the identity of what I try to understand what is nature, that nature, the wild nature. And in this way, I try to give less space to other realities. But for me, what I call the not mother, that is my real mother. I consider her a not mother because she was a mother, but she didn't want to be a mother. It's not a pity, is a nature, is a dimension. She is done in this way. Is a huge quest, is a huge item to try to understand. But these are things that I had dedicated sometimes to understand why this mother don't do the mother. And I wrote some poems about this. But critics or other poets don't read them because I'm not talking directly to trees. This is a limit probably of our poetry and literary society. You have to write what about things that other persons know that you could write. If you write something other, they say, oh, it's not your item, it's not your right field. And this for me is a strange things. I have some difficulty about this.
Thank you, thank you very much, Tiziano. So we have 5 more minutes because I think that we shouldn't exceed too much. And so you have a short question. You select between Marisa and Tiziana, or both.
I have the pleasure to do to both to Tiziana and to Marisa together, because I did one to Marisa because.
Short.
Short. No, it's more long. Okay, now I do to Tiziana, but not because I know what to ask so shortly. And Tiziana is an artist and she is a poet. How she connects nutrire, come si dice nutrire?
Feed.
How she feeds the poetry through the arts and the arts through the poetry. In this way, obviously.
I don't know. And usually when I work with my hands, when I am in the studio, I don't write. Because the separation of the language sometimes is necessary to me. When I need to work, I need to be separated from the word and separated also from myself. Otherwise, I don't go in a passive state that is necessary in order to do an artwork, to build something. So in order to go passive, I need to don't talk, to don't use words. But this is a really interesting process for me because I am the fear to be a loser, the fear to expose yourself to a dangerous state, because when you must wait a work, an artwork that come to you, and you must be ready and you must take this time, it's better if I don't use any words, because I need to arrive to the when I go into the studio and I answer to a task that nobody gives to me. So I am alone with something, like you are alone when you are in front of your page. Nobody is asking to you to do something. So what kind of relationship is with I don't know what? And also in the opposite way. I must be distant from imaging, from to work with my hands, to go into the studio, to look material that I have. I must be distant because the solitude of the language is necessary also for my words, because I need to be, again, separate and disappear. And because, you know, I know what you mean when you tell the words wait for you, something that for sure you can give, but it's not the only things that you can give. So, and also for me, I need to be separated. Nobody will need my work, but in another time, the world will knock your door because the world need to be decrypted,
Ciphered.
and the language of the separation became also the language of the relationship. I don't know, so maybe I'm confused when I talk in English, but I know that when I work, I must be cruel and I must work with imaging, work with the words. But through imaging, I meet the words, and through the words, I search and imagine.
Thank you very much for this ontology that you explained to us. So I have a question for Marisa, and then I think we have to say goodbye to everybody. So in a couple of minutes, since we are also colleagues, because you are a professor too, so you are a researcher, and so I'm very curious to know how the dimension of the dimensions of your life interlace with one another, because I see that there are many echoes from also apparently you gave us a poem that you haven't read, which was an echo with a which resonated very explicitly with Borges, and being Argentinian and being exempt from the influx of Borges is impossible. So I would like to know, how do you scaffold the dimensions of your life?
It's
And
really
what's your
important.
favorite poet?
It's really important for me to change field, because, for example, to read and to teach literature gives me the possibility to change the point of view when, for example, I have to use a poetic character. So to be have the possibility of interact with another styles, with another times, with another voices, is a refreshing way to return to my own writing. And my favorite poets, wow, there are a lot. There is a tradition.
This is a question I'm going to ask everybody. So this is the final. So please be prepared. Pick one.
This mystical and philosophical tradition of the past century, Borges, Roberto Juarros, Alejandra Pizarnik, Olga Orozco, is a poetry of the thought, no? To think, about thinking.
Thank you. Tiziana, your favorite poet?
To Tiziano.
Tiziana, and then, yes, I mean, thank you very much. I'm simply wrapping this up, and I would like to know, this is my curiosity at the end. So before we say goodbye to everybody, I want for everybody of you just to tell us who is your favorite poet, just impromptu.
For me is
Silly question, I know, but we are here also for a silly morning. It's morning here in North Carolina. It's an afternoon there. Saturday, we can have a little bit of fun.
So for me, the poet that I really like is Amelia Rosselli. The language of Amelia Rosselli is stunning.
For me, it's a Canadian writer from Acadie, from the New Brunswick, Herménégilde Chiasson. His name, Herménégilde Chiasson, and is also a painter, poet, cinema, how do you say that, filmmaker, and is writing opera, and is an amazing, amazing person, and is alive.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Tiziano.
See, the list is so long, but I
No.
say two names. From Australia, Leslie Allan Murray, or Les Murray, that he was a poet. And another one is an American, not so known, but for me is very important. Is Thomas McGrath. He's a curious poet from a little state. And these two, among others, because obviously the list,
Yeah, of course.
it would be so long.
Thank you. Well, I take notes from all of you, and I thank you very, very much for this fantastic conversation, and I look forward to next year's Poetry Expo. So thanks, everybody. Thank you to Versopolis. Thank you to Nick, Tiziana, Tiziano, Samantha, Marisa, and everybody who is connected right now, and to everybody who will watch this video in the future. So thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Ciao, ciao a tutti.
Ciao.